So what are CMSs? What value have you gotten out of them? What value do they provide?
So CMS is a content management system, most popular being something like WordPress. So CMSs are typically used with managing e-commerce or like static content sites, where it's just a place for a non-developer to be able to come in and use a UI in order to manage the content of the site. I worked in an agency for a few years where we built a lot of websites, and we went from a place where we were developing the majority of the sites in code, like at the CSS and PHP level. And over time, we moved things more and more to being able to be customized by UI tooling that we'd created until eventually, by the time we left, for the most part, they didn't really need a developer to do the vast majority of the work. So we essentially coded ourselves out of a job at the perfect time that we were, hitting the ceiling and ready to move on to,
Hmm.
bigger and better things.
Well done. Well
So,
played.
yeah.
At least you're not the guys that are
Um,
writing really, obfuscated code that's hard to understand just so, no one can replace you without 4 months of training.
Yeah, no, no, no. My major goal is to, if I can, make sure that if I get hit by a bus, like everything's going to be okay. And if I'm the only developer and I get hit by a bus, I like to try to make sure that the non-developers can continue moving along and doing the things that they need to do. So if somebody needs to change, some text on a page, that shouldn't require a whole pull request to do, or commit if you're not doing PRs, or uploading directly to a PHP server if you're doing it that way. But I think that CMSs are not utilized enough, and when it comes to web applications and even mobile apps. So a lot of people think of CMSs as just a way to uh, manage content, manage pages like static content, and maybe some products or something like that. But I mean, they're really just a way to save any kind of data and manage that with UI. And there's a lot that we're doing with UIs where we're manually, as developers, going through and managing layouts and translations and even settings or timeouts, or maybe even in some cases, like the order of operations or how we do validation on some things, or what events occur after a certain action is performed.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that a lot of things are going to be moving in the direction of leaning more on CMS style management for managing applications, if you want to call it AMS for application management system.
Hmm.
Um, so as any product grows, the scope of the work that a developer is responsible for also grows. And it gets to the point where one developer can never keep up. The backlog is always going to be more than you can do. And you hire more and more people until you eventually get to the place where you have to continuously pick and choose what's most important. Some things in the backlog never get handled. Developers also start to get bored with solving the same problems over and over and over again. But when you move things into, like, let's say like feature flags and launch darkly, or you start moving a lot of like content or even site settings into CMS like Sanity, or one of the many other solutions out there, it takes a lot of the responsibility away from the developer, and it puts that power in the hands of designers and the product people. And so a lot of people might think about a CMS as just managing content, or managing some CSS colors or something like that if you did something crazy. But you can manage layouts. You can add settings to do a lot of really complicated things if you wanted to. And then it's just a matter of training the non-developers to be able to take control of those portions of the application. And when you start to do that, then developers get to start working less on pixel perfect layouts, and you know introducing a bunch of content and translation based logic into their own code, and they get to focus more on developing systems. And whenever you're doing something new, like when you first get into CSS, you're like, okay, well, this is tricky. This is an interesting problem to solve. How do I lay out this in this way, or how do I make something that looks like this? And so those are all new problems for you, but you get to a point where you've solved a lot of those problems before, and it just becomes boring. But when you're building these kinds of systems, it takes everything up to a much higher level of abstraction, and being able to move from just doing the thing to creating systems that allow other people to do the things. To me, that's a much more programmatically engaging way to think about content and web applications and things like that. So when it comes to CMSs, like I would love to see more solutions geared towards using CMSs to manage entire applications. Um, and I've done quite a bit of work over the past probably 2 years now, trying to find different ways to move a lot of application development into UIs. And while most, UI driven development processes have been, kind of terrible, I think that there's a sweet spot somewhere in there that, I think there's a way to develop some sort of a system that is built with developers in mind, something developers would actually want to use and support and build in custom logic and programming for. Um, that can also be super like encourage an intuitive UI and set of controls for non-development people.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's a topic that kind of excites me. I'd like to see more work done in that space.